Bye. Bye. Bye.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Death by Daylight. This is episode number 43, and today we are discussing the Autopsy of Jane Doe. Not exactly a sequel to our Salem Witch conversation, but if you haven't listened to that one, maybe to listen to that one first, because it'll give this some context. But if not, all good. We're glad that you're here hanging out. And we have a good episode. We did a little more preparation today in order to try to reel it in and sand down some of the rough edges. And so things might sound a little bit different, but it's because we're working on making it sound better. My name is Josh, and I am here today with Ernie.
What up, everybody?
And I am here with Michelle.
Hello, beautiful people.
And we're going to, instead of having like a dedicated segment to the drinking game, what we're going to do is instead, we're just going to tell you the rules, or the guidelines rather, for drinking throughout the whole episode. And we'll have like things like special moments where we'll all take a drink together and we'll cheers and that kind of thing. But we're gonna draw less attention to what we're doing, so in the name of the discussion, and then check in with Ernie whenever Michelle and I need to kind of maybe gather ourselves or put the stamp on a paragraph and get to another subject. We will check in with Ernie and how he's doing in game. In the meantime, or before all of that, what as our good friend Keith says, beverage check. What are we drinking tonight?
I am drinking Coors and Buffalo Trace.
Oh, nice little combo there. For anyone listening that doesn't know us, that is not Coors Light, but rather Coors Original.
The Banquet.
Or Banquet, yeah, rather. And Buffalo Trace is a delicious bourbon that is at the well right now at El Velvet Elvis. If you want to go and sip on some bourbon for a pretty decent price, that's the way to do it. What about you, Michelle?
Hi. Sorry about the dog. I had to put him outside real quick.
That's all good.
It's funny, the doctor just laughed as you said that.
No, he was like, "How dare you, cats? You're in my presence." I actually have a glass of wine in front of me. We've, for our new bar, been tasting a lot of wines, and we get to keep some of those wines.
Ooh.
So this is a Louis Martini Cabernet Sauvignon. It's pretty yummy. I'm about it. And I do have, it's not right in front of me, but it's in my eye shot, a bottle of Sotol that's, I'm just going to go get it. I'm going to grab it right now. It's happening.
So this wine that you speak of, how does it compare to Franzia?
I'm biased. I love boxed wine.
Nice.
Don't tell my new bosses that. No. I think all wine, dude, honestly, if you like it, if it's your jam, then fucking drink it. Just like with anything else. The only time I'm like, I guess, critical is when it's stuff like, certain brands that, are homophobic or, you know where I'm getting at. You know,
Bullet.
like the CEO was accused of, sexually assaulting people and didn't want their daughter to be a part of the brand, but he stepped down of being CEO since then. But his name is still on the bottle, so. But that's honestly the only time I'm critical when it comes to wine. Anything else, it's like, if you like it, do you, boo? Do you? And yes, I will do boxed wine stands with you any day.
What was that?
Little slap the bag.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask.
Yeah.
You're the one that taught me that, Josh. I was like, what the fuck is slap the bag? And you're like,
yeah, that was
take it out the box and you slap it.
You just slap it and then you drink. It's not so much of a game as much as a ritual.
Yeah.
But it was a lot of fun, and I basically only exclusively drink Franzia out of the bag. I don't really fuck with wine at all, so
I like rosé.
Rosé all day.
There are rosés that are good. It's so hit and miss that and I never crave it. I'm never like, ooh, I'd like some wine. Nah, I just don't ever feel that way.
I used to drink a lot of wine, especially growing up in Marfa and going to art shows or art gallery openings. There was always wine and cheese and shit there. So it was more of it's the only thing available to me being underage, I could drink. So I was like, fuck it. So a lot of the times I was like, I don't know what this is. I'm just gonna drink it because free booze.
Good enough.
But yeah, exactly. And there's a gap where I kind of just stopped because I just did too much one day, right? But then I revisit. I'm like, okay, this is great. But honestly, what I've figured out is I think you two, especially because I know I've served on you guys. You guys would love vermouths. Even just it sounds weird, but it's something that Cesar brought back from Spain. It's kind of how they drink their gin and tonics, but it's just standard, gin, tonic, choose your gin, choose your tonic, but they add about an ounce of vermouth to it. And there's white vermouths, there's red, there's a rosé vermouth. There's one specifically made in Spain where he went that is fucking delicious. And after having tried that, I kind of, got back into wine after that. And again, in all vermouth it's kind of a fortified wine, so there's a little brandier, a little this, a little more herbaceous, right? So it's just a little bit stronger than your standard wine that you can get anywhere. So one, it's a little bit more booth. Two, just the complexity of the flavors, a lot. It's a little more interesting. It kind of opens up your palate, I guess, for lack of a better term or description, to be able to drink wine and understand wine and appreciate wine, and more so find out what kind of wine you like better. Yeah.
Question, with vermouth, isn't that the stuff for fucking Negronis?
Yeah. So a lot of common cocktails, Negroni, Manhattans. My God, I'm forgetting. Mainly a lot of stirred cocktails, right? So Negroni, it's just gin and coffee, right? Manhattan is rye whiskey, vermouth, and bitters. That's it. Manhattan's actually one of my favorite drinks. Our cocktail night actually is a take on not so much the recipe, but the formula of a Manhattan, where of course I switch out the rye for mezcal. But should I get into that now?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah? Sweet. So, the cocktail minute. Like I was saying, to take on the Manhattan, kind of following the formula. So it's going to have 1.5 ounces of Gem Bolt Mezcal, half an ounce of St. Germain elderflower liqueur, 3/4 ounce of Dolin blanc vermouth. So right, so there's that vermouth. But again, vermouth can also come from different places. You can have Italian, French, etc. This one's French. It's a lot lighter. But as far as the alcohol content, it's still there, and it's kind of rosemary heavy, a little more herbaceous as opposed to standard red vermouth. That's more you get hints of just standard Cabernets or Merlots, right? This is again a lot lighter, brighter, plays well with floral Anyway, some green chartreuse and eucalyptus bitters. So you just stir it all, fine strain, lemon peel, garnish, and baby spice, because you want it to smell just as citrusy and bright and beautiful as possible. And I named it Vixen, because the term witch is oftentimes used in lieu of vixen. Like, I didn't know that until I was looking up, like, again, I love naming cocktails with alliterations, so I was like, what can I do here? So no, yeah, if you honestly just Google witch and vixen, they used to be interchangeable. Unfortunately, now there's connotations like one being evil, one being overly sexualized. But I did it as a nod to Miss Jane Doe, and, you know, how we're gonna find out later, like, all the shit that she had to endure in her life. She must have been really strong, so I wanted to have a strong, like, alcohol-forward cocktail with some smoky notes from the mezcal. However, the floral and the herbal notes don't take a back seat, like, they're still up there with it. It's beautiful. Made it for Miss Jane Doe, inspired by Miss Jane Doe. And I also use Gem Bolt Mezcal, which is a woman-owned brand, and you should check them out.
Alright. That sounds delicious. How alcohol forward is it? Like, is it like people that don't really... Oh, okay. Alright.
Well, actually, you know what? No, because I am adding a modifier, the elderflower liqueur. So instead of having, like, 2 full fucking, like, ounces of just, like, a main spirit, I am cutting that down and adding some Saint Germain, the elderflower liqueur, right? So that actually does mellow it out. So as much as, like, you will feel it, but it's not as abrasive as, like, a standard Manhattan or, like, a standard Negroni. There is a modifier in there to, like, mellow it out. Mind you, this compared to, like, a gin and tonic, you can have maybe 2 of these to, like, 4 gin and tonics, you know? That's about, like, the same ratio of alcohol in booze. So
yeah.
Again, the taste not so abrasive, but the booze is still kind of there. So just be careful. If you make it, though, let me know, because this is one of the cocktails I've made recently that I'm very proud of, because it's really good.
And are you gonna ever, like, feature this stuff for the new bar?
I want to. I guess that's something I need to... We have a menu for the Reagan.
Oh.
As far as, like, we kind of already have it set up, but again, because of the pandemic and COVID, things have been pushed back, like, the opening's been pushed back so many times. So when we created the menu, or Cesar created the menu, it was back in, like, December, so we were thinking more like fall, winter flavors. So definitely certain cocktails have to be revisited. Trust me, I will throw this one in there as like a, hey, what about this? So,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And if not, like, I'm pretty sure it's something, like, I have all these things here at home, so just come visit me. I'll make it to go for you.
Alright. Well, Sarah's here. She says, hey, y'all, and then she said that your boxed wine was fancy. And yeah, we're gonna go ahead and, now that all the booze stuff is taken care of, we'll go ahead and jump right into what we're doing. There's a lot. I think that Ernie put it best when he said that he couldn't, like, get himself to watch it by himself.
Yeah.
I completely understand that because, like, we're gonna do a lot of unpacking of different scenes and different themes and that kind of thing, but I think really what it comes down to, in the most basic of terms, like, even if you're not into any of the stuff that we're about to talk about, you watch the movie because it's scary. Like, it's kind of a make the hair stand up on your neck kind of thing. And it's a lot of fun if you're obviously if you're fucking listening to a horror podcast and all that, like, you're into that kind of stuff, and so it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to watch. But as far as, like, well, I am gonna do, like, a very small synopsis because the discussion is doubtful to be linear. And I think there's going to be a lot of scenes or, like, themes that are discussion heavy as opposed to like the whole movie or the plot of the movie. So what happens is that there's a gentleman and his son, and they are medical examiners. So that really doesn't. I mean, it's not that different than like a mortician, except that the medical examiner has to do all the fucked up stuff, and the mortician does like preparing the body. The medical examiners before the mortician. Anyway, the medical examiners, it's him and his son is the assistant medical examiner, and they get a body in, Jane Doe, and the body is very vague. Like they're not sure how old it is. There's parts of it that look old, but the skin hasn't decayed like enough for it to be like very old. So they're a little bit perplexed right off the bat, and then a bunch of shit happens. We're gonna get into the details of some of that, especially like the beginning and the end of that process. But a lot of stuff happens during the autopsy, and then we get this fantastic end that has a lot to unpack. So they get the body in, they start the autopsy, things go terribly wrong, we get into the end. That's the general structure of things. And like I said right at the beginning of, for me, and Michelle, you can, like as a checkpoint, like you can start anything before this. My first checkpoint is the radio coming on when they're about to put the knife on her body. So anything before that, go for it.
Oh, yeah. Yo, as far as foreshadowing, my god, this entire film, like, I feel like every moment, you know, leading up to, like, the radio, I feel like the radio was, like, the biggest, the most, like, the like, driving force, the thing that carried the narrative, right?
Right.
The thing that, like, brought life to, like, the inanimate objects, right? I feel like that was such a huge part of it. Honestly, for me, one of the first things I noticed, and I watched this, I want to say for the first time maybe like a year and a half ago. I rewatched it again, and I was like, Jesus Christ, like, the writing in this is great. Then I watched it again 2 more times these last two to 3 days.
Nice.
Sorry, Ernie, I'm a psychopath. Don't kill me. But that being said, is I noticed one thing right at the beginning. We know it's that first kind of like murder scene where they first find Jane Doe. I might be shortening Jane Doe to JD just to like,
yeah,
that's kind of how my notes are. But yeah, right, like in that first murder scene, even right before that, there's like an opening shot of like a tree branch that's shot upside down, and then it's twisted until it's upright. And I feel like that's a huge foreshadow to the unnatural, or rather the like supernatural elements of the story that's about to be told, but it's set in like a real life setting, and I thought that was important. And I thought that was also a nod to Midsummer, but then I realized Midsummer came out afterwards. So anyway, I just liked that scene. I was like, that's weird, why are they doing that? Oh, wait a minute. And that was kind of, again, my interpretation of that shot. I felt it was important. Again, not as important as the radio. Like, oh my gosh, I love, like, if I have to say a favorite character in this film, it's the fucking radio.
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
sounds weird, but it's so important. But yeah, as far as like anything before that, also the murder scene, that, again, you don't get a lot of details about the crime scene, rather, in the beginning, like where they find JD. But just looking, again, there's a lot of close-up shots of like the bullet holes, where the gun is versus the bullet holes, where there's blood, where the bodies are located, that it's like, this doesn't really make sense, like, at all. And then once you watch the movie, you're like, that's why it doesn't make sense. Okay, I understand now. So, again, it's stuff that you'll catch, like, second, third viewing stuff. But that scene, again, it's not just thrown in to, like, introduce JD, but I feel like they're taking the time to do these up-close shots of random things that will later be like, oh, Okay. I see what they did there.
Yeah, and that's for me. The foreshadowing. So the way that Michelle and I decided to break this up in order to have different things to discuss was that I was going to take care of like more visual things, and she was going to take care of the writing part of it. But interestingly enough, the radio is a combination of both of those things. And you get, in addition, you get the shots. I mean, obviously, the very specific shots of things that are going to eventually be important is all written in, but we get, these visuals of things. There's so many movies that, like, you think about opening credits on a lot of movies. It's bullshit, because they're just trying, they're kind of setting the scene, kind of setting a move, but they don't want you to pay so much attention that you're not paying attention to the names, or sometimes it's vice versa, where they're doing so much shit where you don't pay attention. The opening credits, I mean, who gives a fuck in this movie, really? But the opening scenes are very, very important. You get a lot of stuff, like you said, that is going to be important later, and you kind of establish the relationship between the father and the son. There's a lot of movies where that dynamic between, this is what's called a bottle movie. The whole movie takes place in one place. There isn't travel. They don't go anywhere. It's essentially in real time. There's not like a lot of moving forward. There's literally no moving. There's no flashbacks. There isn't a lot of jumping forward, and it's all taking place inside of this medical examiner's office. I don't know what you call it, but it's a morgue. It's a morgue, and all of this stuff, like in a lot of bottle episodes or bottle movies, like the problem that arises, the inherent evil or the bad, it comes from a tumultuous relationship between characters. They're stuck in this place together, and there's tension that builds. This movie does not go in that direction. There seems to be not only a very good working relationship between the father and the son. The father's name is Tommy, who is played by the fantastic Brian Cox, phenomenal actor, and he does a very good job in this movie as well. And then Emil Hirsch is Austin, is the son. There are other characters in the movie, but they're in there very briefly. And then obviously the main character, if you can call her that, is Jane Doe, and she absolutely is the main character. But the actress, even though did a phenomenal job at like sitting there and looking creepy, you don't ever like hear her voice. She actually never even makes a facial expression. So the acting job, it's just a different kind of acting job. But anyway,
so just want to interrupt you real quick.
Mm-hmm.
I got my first ever perfect match.
Nice.
I see that. Yo.
So yeah, just wanted to
Nice.
throw that out there.
How do you get a perfect match?
So there's these like emblems that you get for brutality, deviousness, hunter, and sacrifice, and you have to max it out at 8,000 for each one. So by hooking everybody, by not losing the chases, by not letting them do gens, pretty much all that stuff. So
nice. Fuck yeah.
Yeah, so I'm pretty stoked. So I'm gonna take a shot to that.
Fuck yeah. Yeah, fucking
well
well deserved.
Sorry for the interruption. Continue on.
No, you're good. Yeah, so let's get a congratulations in the chat for the perfect game. Means you should be beneath this city, El Paso.
So what's your? We got some questions too. What's your take, Jane Doe, a rocket or a sniper? Definitely a rocket.
Yeah, Jane Doe's a rocket. She's a rocket, and I don't want to be cursed, so there's no way I'm calling her anything but a rocket.
Wait, what does that mean? I mean, I'm assuming rocket. Are you talking about like attractive? I'm so confused. What's a sniper?
I love that. Like, what's that? Go on, Josh.
A sniper's like, this is like, it's not a secret language because it's from Letterkenny, but like that no one here understands what we're talking about ever, which is why we use these words. But a
My
sniper's
sister's on and she watches Letterkenny. Hi, Amy. So maybe she'll kind of know.
She
Anyway,
said,
continue.
Will,
I
Will,
should-
Will Snipe Sally.
Sarah also knows because Big
Oh,
City
she did.
Slams, boys. Big City Slams, boys. He told me, or fucking Katie, she's like, you got a tug job from one of your Big City Slams. Who told you? You just did. Yeah, so a rocket is like a really, really attractive girl, and then a sniper is just like a really attractive girl. like a rocket like has that extra oomph on it. I like just whatever that means to you. And then in between there's other stuff, but
Got it. I really
yeah,
need to
so-
jump on this fucking Letterkenny. Like, Sarah's been telling me forever, my sister even longer. I'll do it one day, guys, I swear. I'm sorry.
who brought the fucking rocket, boys? Someone's billet sister's a fucking rocket. Yeah, it's not my favorite show, but that's because It's Always Sunny exists.
Yeah.
But it's up there with one, like, among my favorite shows on television. I fucking love it. J Texas says radio, great movie. Oh, that's funny. Cuba Gooding Jr. He's been canceled.
What's your name?
When the radio went off,
Radio.
I don't even think I got through that whole fucking movie because, well, let's not talk about it.
I love
when
in
the-
disaster movie when they make fun of him, like when he's on the shopping cart. I think
Dude,
it's
I
disaster
love it.
movie.
I love when they talk about it in fucking Tropic Thunder, and he's like, "You never go," you know what I mean? That whole thing is
Yeah.
fucking funny. Texas says, when the radio went off, what was it? Was it always the same song? Because I remember it changing the station at the end of the movie. I am gonna get very into this song, so just hold your horses there a little bit, buddy. Amy says she's here. J Texas says cheers to Gibby in a perfect game to Gibby. And then Sarah says Big City Slams, Wheel Snipe Silly. Wheel Snipe Silly, boys. Ferda, we're gonna get further into what's going on here. Like I said, my first I guess plot point is the radio and cutting of the skin. So there is a theme that's going to go on throughout the movie about innocence and what it means to be innocent and what you deserve or what you get for your innocence. And the answer to that question is always going to be nothing. Innocence brings you no benefit. It doesn't decide if you live or die. It doesn't decide what happens to you or what you go through. It is literally a non-factor. And we get into the idea of objective morality and what it actually means. There's a famous quote that says anything is possible once you void yourself of objective morality, meaning that people tend to prioritize being a good person and being a good friend and not shitting on other people to get whatever they want. If you throw all of that out the window, there are infinite possibilities as far as like advancing your life. That's not what this is about, but it brings into question objective morality and what it means. Being a good person or being innocent even is not going to save you when it comes to the autopsy of Jane Doe.
So essentially, it's like you get what you fucking deserve.
Well, no, it's you don't get what you deserve. You the opposite of that because no one really deserved what they got in this movie. Like she didn't deserve what happened to her. They didn't deserve what happened to them. The girlfriend, the cat, nobody deserved any of it. But they got it anyway. And so that brings into question objective morality.
Gotcha.
This is fantastic, because I have this completely different view. Mind you, I get it, and I hear you, and I see it, like, what you're saying. Like, I'm not, like, saying no to anything you just said. Like, yes, very much so. But I have, like, an extra elements, but we'll get to that later.
Well, so
I'm excited.
Well, so that concludes with, well, not concludes, the first part of that concludes, or the pinnacle of it is the things that happen right before we get the incision made on this body. So there are two significant things that happen. One of them is that the lights flicker, and not just like, electrical surge flicker. It seems like if you were about to do an autopsy on someone and something like that happened, you'd be like, let's fucking make sure all the electrical's fine, because we're about to cut into somebody and we need to make sure that's fine. They don't. To be fair, the lights come right back on and it's fine. And then after that, we get the first introduction to the radio. And the radio does play a very specific song, and it continues to play that specific song. And that song is Open Up Your Heart and Let the Sunshine In. Originally, it was like I think it was in the early 1970s that the song was released. And the song is terrifying. And it wasn't meant to be that way. But as many things of the Christian faith turn out, it is terrifying. Someone was trying to be like very Christian and like make a song about Jesus, and they biffed it hard because the song is creepy as hell. And we will get into lyrics and all that stuff, but we do. I mean, obviously, I have to give these lyrics away right away. Oftentimes the radio comes out on the chorus of the song, which is, so let the sun shine in, face it with a grin, smilers never lose and frowners never win, so let the sun shine in, face it with a grin, open up your heart and let the sun shine in. Now, it's not a secret that it's being used as a creepy device. If you look at the lyrics in context of an autopsy, that's fucked up. Open up your heart and let the sun shine in. But it has so many layers. It's a creepy device and it's awesome, and they do it very well. But there's so many layers that come with that concept, and we're going to get into all of that. But obviously, so my next plot point, Michelle, and you can work your way either like through what I just said into that plot point or not, is body horror, and that's obviously like when the autopsy is happening. So anything up to the autopsy happening, and obviously like your different take on what I've just said, go.
Okay. What, as far as like the writing, or rather, let's say a plot device. This idea of like, okay, let me word it this way. Think horror film tropes, like typical, right? Like typically, you never see the entity or being that is doing the killing, right? Maybe like until like the very end, or in really short cutscenes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's typical. Like again, like there's some exceptions here and there, but there is a formula that is followed, and again, to keep the like idea or like an illusion there, you don't really see it. And then here we're introduced to JD in like the first like 3 minutes into the film. And it's off-putting because you have her body on display the entire time. It's completely vulnerable. It's completely naked, and it's not until like the film progresses, like maybe 26 minutes in, do both we as an audience and the father-son duo begin to feel like some sort of ominous feeling from her, right? I think there's transitions, like even when before they even like start the incision and all of that goes down, and like actually like throughout the entire like, autopsy, there's these shots that you see like them doing side exam to her face and back, right? So I want to compare it to another like idea of a scene. So think of a scene where one person is stabbing another, right? In a film, you would typically see the stabber with the knife going into the body, and then it will cut to the face of the person being stabbed, right? Because you want to see the reaction. The scene transitions from the autopsy to her face is a huge device that's used in the film to push the storytelling. Because imagine if in every scene where every new procedure is done, but there's no cut scenes to her face, it'd just be boring. It'd just be two dudes performing an autopsy, right? But these transitions, these cuts, they're made to, one, give her screen time, right? Because that is an actress. That is, like, you know, that's not just a dummy. Like, she's there for a reason. But it also gives this hint of, like, life, as if she is reacting to what's being done to her, without us physically, like, being able to see it. But it does, again, have that cuts in them. Besides that, as far as the whole, like, innocent thing, I think I want to get into, like, at the end, like, my big interpretation of it all. I kind of want to go through the whole thing, and then it'll make more sense once we go through all of it. But as for now, I think I have those two. I will say one thing. You talked about the cat, Stanley.
Right.
I'm very much on JD's side throughout the film, except with the cat. I think she went too far with the cat. Because I thought witches and cats were homies, man. Are they not? That's what Halloween taught me. That's a joke, clearly.
Well, so no, but I think it's also like, I think it's a good point though. Like, Ernie and I have this thing where we refuse to watch dogs die in movies. Like,
yeah,
if we know it's coming, we just like skip through it. Because why? Why did it need to happen? But
yeah.
But I feel the same way with any animal, right? Like, I have an affinity for dogs, but never would I want a cat to like come into any harm or anything like that. So, especially like it got I Am Legend where like he had to kill his own dog and they have to kill their own cat. Like, it's just fucking ugly. The worst case scenario.
I mean, as much as I think it is bullshit that Stanley had to die, but I said he had to die because it was, like, in JD's defense, she kind of had to kill the cat to warn them, right? Like, I don't know if we've, like, gotten into the whole, like, you know... Well, you did. You said, like, the light started flickering.
Yeah, I mean, there were warnings.
Like, there were warnings before the first incision was made. And again, because this is an autopsy that's being performed, not only, like they're recording themselves, so anything they do is being said out loud, right? So... she is getting the, like, oh shit, like, you know, JD is hearing that, you know, or is feeling, I don't know how we want to go by, like, this, her character, how she, like, took that, but I'm pretty sure, like, she can just hear it, but also I'm pretty sure she's been through that before, right, because, anyway, but, yeah, I was a little upset about the cat. Also, the cat has, like, more screen time than the girlfriend, just throwing that out there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that for, like, I mean, the cat, any animal, really, unless they're possessed or whatever, like, the ultimate innocence. The cat doesn't know what the fuck is going on. Okay, so, did it have to die as a device? Yes, but ultimately, again, completely innocent, did nothing wrong, lost its life. And even if it's like in service of the humans, it wasn't, first of all, it's still shitty, and second of all, like, still fucking didn't save them. It didn't save them, just like the lights and the radio didn't save them. And you get, I think that those things, not the cat, but the other stuff, has to happen too, because Jane Doe does not want this. She does not want them to cut into her. She does not want to unleash what is inside of her. And we get that constantly throughout the movie as well, like a theme of what is happening on the surface has no correlation with what's happening inside. We get that constantly. What would appear is not as it seems. What you're seeing is not what is.
And that's actually one of the father Tommy's, like, one of his first lines, because they are working on another body before JD shows up. And, you know, it's all burnt up, so the son, you know, Austin automatically thinks, oh, it's because of that. And to which he says, no, you have to get below the surface of things to find, like, the truth. And yeah, you're completely right. That comes up in the writing so much, like, over and over, and even in, like, little tiny, like, things that you're like, don't forget. You know, it's just like a little reminder about that.
Yeah, and I think that we get a lot of reminders. And there are some things in other movies that, like, you get beat over the head with it, but a lot of these things are so subtle that you never feel like you're getting beaten over the head with anything. Even if you watch it, you know, 2-3 times and you're expecting things, they're reminders. They're not these obvious, and they like fit in. They fit with the plot. They fit with the aesthetic. They fit with what's going on. And so the themes are done really well. It's a theme as opposed to like a soapbox or a grandstand about one thing or the other. And so then we get into, for me, body horror. And we'll make this the last thing before we take a little gather ourselves break. Body horror is obvious. The movie has Autopsy in it. So it takes a very special kind of person to be able to be a medical examiner, or to be able to be in forensics, or to be able to be a mortician. Anything that's dealing with dead people, freshly dead people, brutally murdered people, it is not something that the everyday person can do. It's disgusting to a lot of us. Nobody really wants to be reminded of their own mortality, much less like have it be a part of your daily routine. Like, how do you have like a healthy sex life? How do you eat meat when you're a medical examiner? I don't know. I'll never understand it, but they do, and they you know, they're able to categorize and separate those things. But we are not, and yet we find ourselves here in a medical examination room, undergoing an autopsy, looking at an autopsy, looking at the cuts. So there's a couple of plot points here that are important. Again, constant foreshadowing. Only and they mention it, right? It's not. This isn't something I caught and I'm talking about. He says it immediately. When the cuts happen, there's blood, and they're not expecting blood because blood usually only comes out of fresh bodies. And so he's really not expecting the blood. They already know something's up a little bit. They didn't heed the warning. The second that they cut into her, you get the feeling that it is too late. Not only because you've seen the trailer to the movie and you know that's where things go bad, but they do a great job with the blood coming out, going like, this isn't good. You fucked up. When you never want to get something you're not expecting in an autopsy, and we get a lot of things we're not expecting. We get lungs that look charred, right? They don't look like a smoker's lung. It looks like a lung that's been burnt. We get a heart that has lacerations in it. We get markings on the inside of her skin. And we also get a bag, or rather like a satchel, that they find. I think it's inside her kidney or her liver or something. Anyway,
they cut open an intestine. So
oh, the intestine.
Yeah. So one of the comments made is because it's such an old cloth that they're like, wait, like the stomach acid, like, wait, you know, where it's actually going. Oh no, I think it was the stomach. Yeah, because what one of the comments made is that you would think that the stomach acid like basically disintegrate this like really thin piece of cloth, but it's not. It's still there and fully intact.
And inside the cloth we have one of her molars, and we also have inscriptions. If you know anything about witchcraft, you recognize what's on the cloth immediately as a summoning circle. It's also called ritual circle. And the symbols that, this is my research that I'm very proud of, the symbols that I was able to find, at least, protection, life cycle, completeness, the moon, and feminine magic, are all represented in this ritual circle that they find on the cloth. They don't mention any of that stuff, so you gotta really be paying attention. But obviously all of those things, those themes, are found throughout the movie. And to conclude in body horror before we go into this little break, it's horrendous. It's horrific in the way that horror should be. There are people that really like blood and guts and gore. I've said it a million times. I'm not one of those people, and it's not gory in like the way that Saw is, where it just isn't. It's, I want to say it's more tastefully done. I don't know if that's the right word, but while it's disgusting and there are elements of body horror, again, it's not hitting you over the head with like, oh, look how gross this is, and they're able to get that mood across because both Brian Cox and Emile Hirsch, Tommy and I forget the kid's name, Arthur.
Which kid?
Not the kid, his Austin.
Austin,
his son, yeah. Both of them are not. They're. You can tell they're thrown off by what they're finding, but they don't freak out. They remain very professional, and they are really just trying to get to the bottom of this. Until shit starts to fucking pop off, they really are like very professional, very focused, really, again, trying to help find out what happened to this woman. Innocence and good intentions, and they mean nothing. But that's my body horror segment. There are other things that we find out, but obviously the autopsy itself is incredibly uncomfortable in a way that very few movies accomplish that kind of uncomfortableness without being over the top gory or gross or those kinds of things. Also, special effects, fantastic. All of the body parts look really, really great.
I agree. I concur for sure.
Is it just me, or does she kind of look like Angelina Jolie?
The girl?
Yeah. Well, Jane Doe.
I didn't get that at all.
No?
But
Me neither.
No?
maybe someone in the chat will agree with you.
I guess I'll just go fuck myself.
In the chat, we get, Keith is here. Hello, Keith.
To Gibby.
And
Keith,
then
since
JD
you're here,
Texas said,
Bev
said,
check.
baby. Bev check, Keith. What are you drinking? And then Sarah says the song reminds me of the song that Baby Billy and Amy Lee Gemstone sing in Righteous Gemstones. Here's the thing, Sarah. I've only heard really, really good things about the Righteous Gemstones, but I have not been able to watch it, unfortunately, because people that love it, like, really fucking love it. And I like everyone, like, I like all the actors in the show, so eventually I hope to get it, but unfortunately right now I don't know what you're talking about.
So, like,
I haven't seen that either.
since we have people in the chat, like, can we get, like, a vote for who I play next?
You want to give them, like, a couple choices?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Nurse, Legion, or let's see, who can we see? Nurse, Legion, or Oni?
Alright, so chat, if you want to see Ernie play the Nurse, or Legion, or Oni. Oni is a demon, the Legion is like 3 different people that you can interchange, and then the Nurse is typically considered one of the most difficult killers in the game, but the people that do well with her tend to do very, very well. So if you have any opinions on that, please send us a vote, and Ernie will take that and run with it for his next game. And he can talk about his perfect game along with some other Dead by Daylight happenings while we take a little break from our subject matter, and we will return with whatever Michelle has next for us. I like that we're going back and forth. I like that we're talking about that we have different focuses, because I feel like it's made for better conversation. So I've sent the ball back into your court, and you'll pick up whenever we're ready to come back. But I need to use the restroom and grab a beverage, so I will be back.
I do actually have
Sounds
some
good.
Dead by Daylight news for anybody that plays Survivor.
Yes.
So there's this perk that Jesus and Juan and myself, and I think Gibby too, and almost any other survivor that plays Dead by Daylight uses, called Decisive Strike. So pretty much what it is, when you get unhooked, you have 60 seconds, and if the killer knocks you down within those 60 seconds and picks you up, you get a skill check, and if you land that skill check, you actually get off the hook, or get off the killer's grasp. Well, people were using it to be dicks and like weren't scared of the killer whenever they would actually have that up. So they would run at the killer and like jump in lockers so they can purposely grab them to DS them. Well,
Yeah.
it's getting nerfed now, so people would just sit on generators and then wait for the killer to like pick them up, like without even being scared. And then when they'd pick them up, they'd stun them, and it's pretty toxic. But it's getting nerfed now to where if you get off the hook and you either touch a generator or start healing or pretty much do anything where you're in a safe spot, it deactivates it. So, of course,
I
Reddit
see.
Reddit is fucking furious.
Yeah, of course. Naturally.
But yeah, that should be coming. I think the next patch, which should be this coming Tuesday. Sorry if you hear water running. It's me washing my hands real quick.
It's all good.
COVID.
Yeah, that's still happening.
Yeah.
I'm just
Surprisingly.
kidding. I've just been at home. I don't leave. No, yeah, that's cool. I feel like I say this every time we talk, like, or focus on the game. Like, I really wish I could play this game. One, though, it's like, it seems really difficult. Especially like the different colors, the different, strengths and weaknesses that they have, etc., and all the things that like the survivors can do. Like the flashlight. I remember the first time I saw the flashlight and lost my shit. I was like, who the fuck is giving these survivors a flashlight? Like, stop. Like, that was just frustrating.
That shit's so fucking
But
toxic.
I think to me it's just the motion sickness that I get that's just frustrating.
Yeah.
I think the few times I've played, I was like, one time I was just like closing my eyes, like, just do I go left or right? And I'm like, I'm not gonna get far.
Yeah, it's hard.
But I'm very much, God, is this a thing like a backseat game watcher?
Backseat gamer.
Yeah, there you go, backseat gamer.
I mean, I kind of am too, because I watch fucking people on Twitch all the time play this shit, like when I'm working, so, but
Yeah.
it's like helped me get better, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. No, yeah, Caesar does the same thing for sure. He's doing the Final Fantasy remake at the moment.
Oh, nice.
And love like all the cutscenes in the story, but when it comes to the action, I just can't. So he'll get to like a certain point, and then we'll go on YouTube and just watch someone like post out all the cutscenes, like to make a cohesive story.
Nice.
So we'll be like, okay, cool, we stopped here, and this is how far I got, and then we'll just, he'll show me the story, and then he'll go play and be like, all right, this is how far I got today, and yeah.
Nice. That's pretty badass. So we have Michelle saying nurse and Sarah saying nurse, and Raheem's here. What up, Ra? How's it going, buddy?
What's going on, Raheem? Right back.
They want me to play nurse.
I guess nurse it is, eh?
It's their funeral.
I want to get better at her, so it's worth it, I guess.
So we'll have a nurse game. I think it's kind of apropos for the... Did you play Doctor already? Weren't you going to play Doctor?
That's where I got the perfect game.
Nice. Yeah, so we did this so that he could play some Doctor, which he hadn't done a lot of before.
I feel like
the
nurse kind
also.
of suits the build too, no?
Yeah, for sure. And then we'll continue with our. Well, I have my beer review of the week. Jesus says, I want to play doctor with you, Josh. Alright. It's kind of strange, but could probably make that happen.
What kind of doctor? Like,
The sexy kind, I imagine.
He wants to be your gyno. Just kidding.
Oh. Well, proctologist, I
was
don't
gonna
have
say
a vagina.
proctologist. Yeah.
So, he can be my proctologist. Ass man.
I was trying to insult you.
Yeah, and I
Josh, he
took
has
your
a
insults
mangina.
and I fucking sent it back at you. No, the beer review of the week is going to be Sierra Nevada's hazy little thing, unfiltered and citrusy. That's how it's advertised. Both of those things are true. I think it's a 6.4, which isn't super high, at least for my liking. But it's not bad. And if you're looking for something refreshing, but you still want an IPA, if this is really cold, it's pretty easy to drink. With that said, there are so many better options for both unfiltered and citrusy. And what I will say is that there's no malt. It's not a great finish. I think that's the biggest difference between something like Fresh Squeezed or 7K or Voodoo Rangers unfiltered citrus IPA. All of those have a fantastic finish, and this one not so much. As well as it just doesn't pack the punch that some of those other ones do, either as far as the alcohol level or the flavor. So not bad, but not great.
So this nurse game that I'm gonna do, I want to try something out. It's spasmodic nurse. So if I hit a survival with a blink attack, instead of I won't be able to blink anymore. But instead of my movement speed being 3.8, it'll go up to 4.6. So I'll be able to actually like walk around like a normal fucking killer.
Alright.
And it's kind of like a trolley thing with Nurse, like, why isn't he blinking? Why is he so fast?
And she usually like blinks, like that's her thing.
Yeah, that's what it. You know when she like teleports, that's that's the blink mechanic.
Right. But so you're not going to be doing that at all?
I am. I have to land one, and then it boosts my speed for a minute.
Oh, okay.
So see how this goes.
All right. J Texas says, "No, I'm concerned with your health." That makes two of us, J Texas. That's why I've been behaving so much.
Cheers to that.
Because I'm gonna get fucking healthy, baby. It's actually going really well. It's going really well. So Michelle, you are up.
Nope. I'm trying to think. I know Sarah was here. I don't know as far as our listeners, like, who was present for the Salem episode, but just if you were part of it, but if you remember that whole conversation with that, I kept talking and mentioning the idea of like TikTok and like witches on which TikTok, or it's called Witch Talk.
Oh yeah.
And we were like specifically talking about like, and I think Josh, you mentioned this entirely, like you said this, well, something about like there's this entity, there's this dark force that, you know, they're playing around with, but, you know, like, where's also like the respect for it, right? So I feel like there's this like element of respect that social media just destroys or like exploits, and I think that's my, not so much issue, my like concern over these people putting, you know, making a witch talk video, right? And they're just doing like little silly things, like, you know, pretending it's a trend on social media and that it's fun. But these practices are founded, like were founded like many years ago, and, you know, we have historical accounts where stuff like this like personally, again, the idea of persecuting women, because again, not to say it was one, like, again, the film also mentions that this idea of innocence, and Josh, you mentioned it as well. But I think at like this point of the film where we kind of stopped and everything, that's where I started thinking of when, the lights go out and all this shit happens and they actually become scared, where their first instinct, it's the first time they kind of think to flee the fucking place. And again, it's that there's this entity, there's this force, there's something that is being messed with. And again, it's something to be respected, and they're not doing that. And I think, again, because a lot of the times things like this are being exploited, I guess, on social media. And again, I just have a whole little side note as I was watching this, like, this is what we meant. As far as, like, people not knowing what they're playing with, mind you, Austin and Tommy were kind of just doing their job, but also at the same time, they did get multiple signs to just, like, fucking stop. And it didn't happen. So, to continue, I think we stopped where, they're in her, like, chest cavity, they're digging in, they're finding, like, everything Josh mentioned, like, the scar tissue on her heart and her lungs, they find the shroud with her tooth in it, and I think this is the moment where, again, we hear the radio. I feel like this is, like, a climax, right? But I have two notes. I have a climax and, like, a point of no return for the characters. And you hear, in the beginning, when the body's first drawn in, you hear the radio talking about, it's like a weather announcement about it's going to be sunny for the next 4 days, and it's bright and beautiful. And then here, where they find this shroud, they're looking at her, they're just like, holy shit, like, what do we do now? Like, they find the skin, the etchings inside, like, underneath her skin. And, again, cuts to the radio, and it's a weather reporter saying, like, trust me, you don't want to get caught in this, you're not going anywhere. Basically saying, like, you need to go home, you don't want to get caught in this, you're not going anywhere. So I feel like they've hit that point of, like, fuck, maybe this is it. And then it cuts to, again, that song. I keep calling it the Devil's Song, I don't know why. And then after that, that's when all the lights, everything electrical just completely turns off. But then at the same time, all the drawers where they keep the body, again, lights go off, they go back on, all the drawers are open, all the bodies have fallen out. Right? So again, the setting, as Josh said, it's all in the same room where they have these autopsy examinations. So, it's very, like, just table, body, there's drawers to store the bodies. And then now lights turn off, they turn back on, all of it's open, lights have completely gone out. It's a fucking mess.
Yeah.
Oh, did it cut out? Sorry.
Yeah, after you said mess, it cut out.
Okay. But no, so for me though, well, actually no, after that, there was a moment where it was their first chance to escape, and where do they go? Like, they're stuck in a basement. At that point, they realize, they try to use, like, the basement exit. Turns out because of the intense storm that's happening, a tree has fallen, because of the electrical issues, the elevator's not working. All of these things are happening.
Yeah, I think that you can't, like, on purpose, you can't just, like, access the part where the bodies are. Like, you have to go through the storm door or an elevator because they don't want someone to, like, walk into a wrong door and go down there.
Yeah. So you remember in the beginning when we're introduced to the girlfriend, even right. Austin's, like, confused, like, hey, how did you get down here? Like, what the hell? Like, he's very, like, how the fuck did you get here?
Right.
To which she says, oh, you left the key on the elevator, so I just, like, made myself at home. So, yeah, they do that purposely, again, like you said, for that reason. But I think after all of this, like, the lights and everything, this is the first time they leave, and do you have anything on the scene with them going and hiding in the office, and the bells on the toes?
Yeah, for me, all of this stuff, my note is that you don't always understand what's wrong. Like during the autopsy, until he explains certain things, like you see the heart, and before he explains why it doesn't look right, you know it doesn't look right. And that is also a theme among these things where, like, it's happening in real time when you're doing a job, okay? So,
I
like...
have to apologize to everyone listening because that survivor that I just hooked is super fucking loud. Sorry about that.
Like,
And
the character is loud?
yeah, like she's bugged and she's horrendously loud when you hook her. So, sorry to everyone listening. Continue on, sorry.
Again, all of this is happening in real time. There's not flashbacks. There isn't. It's all happening right in front of you. So when you're doing a job, you are the lobster in a pot. Like, as the water around you gets more and more hot, you don't notice it because this is an environment that, first of all, is slowly changing, but also it's your job. No matter, you've seen 1,000 fucked up things before. Maybe not this fucked up, maybe not in the way that things are fucked up, but car accidents, man, having to figure out how exactly someone died in a car accident, you gotta fucking rip all that shit out and cut everything open and look for bruising and look for points of impact and look at fucking craniums and all, I mean, so they're used to fucked up shit, and you're right, like, they don't notice until it's too late, and that goes right back to, you don't know exactly what's wrong or why it's wrong because you're not familiar with the medical terms, but as it's progressing, you know that something's wrong almost before they do, and the whole time you're thinking to yourself, like, you've got to bail, but it's their fucking job. Not that they, you know, it's not a fucking soldier kind of thing where it's like, do your duty in the face of death. No, it's just like you don't, someone that isn't a medical examiner that went through some of those things would immediately be like, hey guys, maybe this is a little fucked up and we need to revisit this some other time. But to them, it's just another thing that they have to get done until it isn't. And the first real, everything that happens with Jane Doe up to that point, as gross and as fucked up as it is, nothing has happened that's necessarily supernatural. If there's an electric surge, radio comes off and on, lights come off and on. We find all sorts of weird shit. But the doors opening and then the tags on the toes are that first, like, supernatural thing that we get. And my big reveal in all of this we're getting there very shortly, but remember the paranormal stuff. Remember the stuff that there is no explanation for, and one of those things is the doors opening and the toe tags, the bells going off on the toes.
I've never been so terrified of a bell, or rather the sound of a bell.
Yeah.
Again, the first time we saw it was like 1.5 years ago, and then I rewatched it a little bit after. I remember the second view, and I was like, fuck bells. Like, no. This is, again, like, the part with, like, the doors opening. Yeah, you're right. The first, like, supernatural, like, elements in the film that comes out. And I want to write, like, it's done so well as far as how it is written and how, mind you, we're at this point, like you said, they're just doing the job, everything's doing, you know, the electrical, like the surges, everything, you know, normal can happen in real life, you know, for lack of a better term. This is 45 minutes in when you first see the door open on its own, and they're like, what the actual fuck? That mixed with the radio, mixed with like there's a really, really great scene of just like the camera zooming into her face to just her eyes, and then bam, you know, all the lights break, everything turns off, then it turns on, body's missing. It's after here that they decide to run into the office, right? Like, they just want to get the fuck out of that room.
Yeah, just get out of the room.
Yeah, because at that point the lights don't turn off. Like, excuse me, they have a flashlight, right? At that point. So then the scene is again really nicely shot, just seeing like the flashlight pointing to each individual empty drawer where previously there had been bodies and the doors were shut. So then they go to the office. Rather, they try to escape, the elevator's not working, the basement door is trapped, whatever. Then they go and just like hide in the office. And I don't know, do you want to talk about, I don't know, was it as terrible for you as it was for me? Just like the bell, seeing the shadow underneath the office door where they've like enclosed themselves in. Like,
Yeah.
Especially like they know they're trapped down there. There is no one else except the corpses. And then to see that, what the fuck? And also like the second big kind of, I guess that plus what happens to the father in the bathroom are like the other two like supernatural things to happen.
Yeah, so
do you have anything?
Yeah, we get the fall of the House of Usher here. If you're unfamiliar with the story by Edgar Allan Poe, the elements of fear in the fall of the House of Usher come from sounds. So he knows that it's not zombies in the way, it's just the Walking Dead, the rising of the dead. He knows that the crypt is open because he hears a loud crash. The first time that he goes to see it, it's something on the wall had fallen, but everything was out of place. When he knows for sure that the fucking body is out of the crypt and that it's coming for him, everything is sounds. What he's hearing, that's the only scent. He can't see anything. He can't, there isn't anything except this terror from what you're hearing in the sounds, and that's what we get here is an aural, A-U-R-A-L, fear. We get the so the shadow under the door, not so much, but that's afterwards. That's after we've heard the bells. That's after everything is quiet. That's after they've locked themselves inside the office. And what they've done by locking themselves inside the office is now acknowledged where their fear is coming from. Their fear is now of Jane Doe. And they feed whatever this entity is, whatever evil is becoming of them, they're now feeding it. And they get further and further into, as the movie progresses, we go further from realism into just this world of magical realism. We're not in fucking Middle Earth, where, in what could be, a eastern seaboard town, and everything is set in reality. But as they buy more and more into this fear, and she gains more power, we get further and further away from reality. And that's also going to be important for my big reveal coming up. As far as fear in these scenes, yeah, it's scary. The one of the only jump scares in the movie is them looking through a crack in the door, and then on the other side is a face with eyelids stitched closed and the mouth stitched closed. And so we know that whatever is happening is now no longer just consisting of Jane Doe. That the bodies are loose. The fall of the House of Usher is happening. And it gives me chills just thinking about it, because it was very well done, in the same pace as Edgar Allan Poe did so long ago.
Yeah, definitely.
And then we get Texas saying,
comparison.
do you think the movie could be scarier or less if it was John Doe? I think it's significantly less scary if it's John Doe, because where's John Doe getting this from? Like, where we get witchcraft almost immediately. Male witches are not scary. And Sarah says, a little gross curiosity. Yeah, I mean, I think that think there's gross curiosity, and then I think that there's whatever the fuck compels these people to do this job their whole life. It has to be. It's like gross curiosity in a way that's like tied into your DNA, and they are curious. I mean, they do. Their whole fucking lives revolve around finding out what happened to people, and this was no different until it was. We've skipped over the cat, but the cat is found in the vent, and they feel like it's badly injured. So you don't see a lot of the cat, right? You don't see, like you do, it's not that it isn't on screen, but you don't get like a very good visual of what could possibly be wrong with it. You hear them say, like, he's fucking hurt, he's gotta die. The fucking Agamemnon...
covered in blood as well. And, like, crying. Or, like, meowing. Like, meow crying.
Yeah, so what exactly happened to it? Like, there's an indication of, like, what exactly happened to it. You just know it's covered in blood.
Yeah.
Fucking... Tommy has to break its neck. Again, like...
That part was brutal.
He makes a very quick decision and then just does it. Like, that's a boss hog right there, to fucking just be able to put an animal, like stop it from suffering that quickly, knowing like that you're taking its life. But we also are introduced to another character here who we never see, and that is Tommy's wife / Austin's mother. So, the wife and mother of these two gentlemen, the connection is made when he kills the cat, because he tells his son, he says, this was the last thing, or the cat belonged to your mother, and it's one of the last things that I had of hers, to remind me of her and to make me think of her. And he even asks, he in all of this shit happening, and your son is like, it's your son, it was his mother, and he asks for a moment to be alone. This is important because we get the feeling, there's an intuition that is triggered here that says that there is something to the relationship that Austin is unaware of. In this moment, they're not chuckling together about how the cat used to sit on mom's lap and shit. No, there's something very dark here that Austin is not pun, but he's not in the light, he doesn't understand. He doesn't understand what is going on with his dad and asking to be alone. It's not like he asked to be alone forever, he just needed a couple seconds to compose himself or whatever. And we eventually find out that the mother, her name is not Ray, but Tommy called her Ray because she was a ray of sunshine. And we get the connection to our Sunshine song, which I'm going to talk about very briefly here. There are lyrics that you don't hear all of the song. So here are the lyrics to the song that keeps coming on the radio. Mommy told me something that a little kid should know. It's all about the devil, and I learned to hate him so. She said he causes trouble when you let him in your room. He'll never ever leave you if your heart is filled with gloom. And then the Let the Sunshine In part is the chorus. When you are happy, the devil wears a grin. But when you are unhappy, the devil wears a grin. But oh, he starts to run when the light comes prowling in. I know he'll be unhappy because I'll never wear a frown. Maybe if we keep on smiling, he'll get tired of hanging around. If I forget to say my prayers, the devil jumps with glee. But he feels so awful, awful when he sees me on my knees. So if you feel of trouble and you never seem to move, just open up your heart and let the sun shine in.
Wow.
And so you get like an overwhelming sensation of like, is all of the concept of this movie revolved around this fucked up song? Because there's so many things that work in these lyrics, and they don't even play these lyrics. They don't like those lyrics are not even in there, but they fit so well, especially like literally. So if you feel of trouble and you never seem to move, we're talking about a fucking corpse. We're talking about an autopsy. Just open up your heart and let the sunshine in. So we get layers again. Nothing is what it seems. We find out that the mom she was called Ray because she was like a ray of sunshine, but she suffered from depression, and presumably it's not said directly, but the assumption here is that she killed herself. And we get on the surface, it looks like one thing, but when you cut it open, it's something entirely different. And so we start to see layers not only with the song, but we see layers with Jane Doe. We see layers with feminine energy. We see layers with the life cycle, that all of the things that showed up in the summoning circle on the cloth that we find inside of Jane Doe. And this is where the movie really hits, like, it's hitting its horror stride inside of the office and then eventually inside of the bathroom with the shower, but it's also hitting its theme stride. It's hitting what it wants to its value engine as far as what it's trying to talk about is all it's all firing on all cylinders at this moment.
Very much so. I looked up the lyrics and immediately kind of just like the first, no, is it the second verse? Now I realize, like, it's like shit like this is the reason why, people who were raised like Catholic, Christian, etc., like they're very not, I guess do I say believe in, like, mental health issues,
Right.
And, it just, the scene where he talks about his wife, Ray, and, that idea of, like, on the surface, like, he called her Ray, short for ray of sunshine, for fuck's sake, but she was so consumed because of, like, her depression that she and with this song, yeah, I kind of agree, this song is so important as far as, like, how it carries the story, even, like, the little sides, like, here and there, how it shows, like,
we've briefly lost Michelle. Hopefully she is back. John Lynch! Hall of Fame, baby! Sorry. Holy shit. That's awesome. Hopefully she'll be back very soon. We might as well take a little bit of a break here. How the nurse is done. What is it now?
Oh, I finished the nurse game.
Yeah. So what? Oh, is this Bubba?
Yeah, it's Bubba.
Bubba.
I did pretty good with the nurse. I closed the hatch, and then some guy got off with the fucking... I closed the hatch, but then the door was all the way across the fucking gate. And fucking... Well, with the nurse, where you can't fucking walk fast, that was just unlucky. Oof, and these guys got my totems.
Sun City, beneath the city El Paso says Drew Pearson. Yes, Drew Pearson of the Dallas Cowboys fame, also into the Hall of Fame.
Real good quarterback too. I'll say that.
Yeah, John Lynch, Buccaneers legend, finished his career in Denver, which kind of sucked, but he'll always be a Tampa Bay Buccaneer in my heart.
That's how I am with Brian Dawkins.
Also a Bronco at the end of his career.
Yeah.
Let's not talk football. It's I'm too nervous about tomorrow to talk football. So, Michelle hopefully will be coming back. We are going to continue to discuss. We're actually getting into the end. We're getting into the end of the movie, but there's a lot at the end. There's like the whole thing is the end. So, we definitely still have quite a bit of material left. Tom motherfucking Brady voted goats. It's goddamn right. It's goddamn right. I'm obviously not. I'm a Bucks fan, not a Patriots fan, but I always liked Tom Brady, even when I never understood like hating on him just because he wins. Like he's the GOAT. I think Michelle is back.
I had a good reason for hating on him.
Oh yeah, okay. Michelle, you're back.
Sorry, guys.
No, it's
I
all
have
good.
no idea what happened.
Well, the important thing is you're here now. Do you remember what you were saying?
Can you remind me the last thing that I said or that you learned?
So we were discussing, like, how important the song is to the overall theme of the movie and how it keeps popping up, and then, the mom's depression.
Okay, so you didn't hear my kind of long rant about the girlfriend?
No, I heard zero about the girlfriend.
Okay, so before I start, I guess, did you want to we haven't talked about the girlfriend much, right?
No, not at all. I mean, very, very, very briefly.
Can we get into that now, or did you have something?
Yeah, of course.
So,
Go for it.
So the mom, the song, again, kind of what Josh mentioned as far as the relationship between not just, Austin and the mother or the wife, but also Austin and the son, right? Like, there's some tension there. Tommy. Excuse me, I said Austin.
Yeah.
Tommy and Austin versus Tommy and the wife. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, let me just shorten what I was getting at. Like you mentioned, there's tension between the husband and the wife, but also that, to me, showed tension between Austin and his dad. The fact that he, asked for some time alone. And we actually do see this kind of in the beginning when we're first introduced to the girlfriend, right? So the girlfriend shows up. I think we mentioned this earlier, how she kind of, snuck in there because she found the key, so she just, went ahead and went in. And they were supposed to have a date. And he wasn't supposed to be there for all of the Jane Doe happenings, right? But he ends up, they were about to leave on the date. Then he sees the sheriff show up with Jane Doe. And he's like, no, I think I'm going to skip the date. I need to help my dad, because if not, he's going to be here all night. To which she then gets upset. Not so much about, skipping out on the date part, but more so, I guess Austin has confided in her that even though the family's run that business for many generations, that he doesn't want to continue it, right? He has other plans. He wants to go to school out of state, etc., right? So him ditching out on the date wasn't so much just pissing her off because, I have to go on a date by myself, but it was more of a, you still haven't told him, you're leading him on type of thing, right? He believes you're going to carry on the family business. So that's where we see the girlfriend first, and then she leaves after that, pretty much. Yeah. Well, she does stick around for a little bit because she's intrigued with Jane Doe, or no, actually no, she doesn't.
Yeah, she just leaves.
She just leaves. Yeah. Okay. So then we fast forward to all the craziness that's happening now, all of the supernatural things, everything, and they end up going back into the room where Jane Doe is located. So yeah, let's, I guess, fast forward, past the cat, past everything. They're back in the room with her. All the lights go off. That's when they go back to the office, or they barricade themselves in the office again. Like you said, they're at this point feeding more energy into this, force, right? Because they're acknowledging it. At one point, they're just like, let's go back. No, what happens? I'm so sorry. This whole, my remote being stupid threw me off.
The bathroom is where what was next.
Oh yeah.
And then I mean, spoiler alert, but we've already done a lot of that. The girlfriend gets the axe in the face.
Yeah, that's it. So
yeah.
I wanted to talk about, I guess, like, the girlfriend herself, right? Okay. It's the reason, because, again, I have something to say after. But the girlfriend, they decide again when she leaves. I guess she was gonna watch a movie, and she said, "Hey, I'll come back later and pick you up, and maybe we can just like hook up or whatever." Right? So then all of this happens, and at one point they're trying to escape again. The electricity comes on for a little bit, and they hear the elevator actually start to run, so they jump in there. Austin is holding the axe, and he's trying to close again. It's those old timey again. The whole office autopsy area. What's the term? It's like very dated. It's very old school, right? And so they're trying to close like the gate part of the elevator to have the actual doors closed. It's not working because the electricity keeps going on and off, and the dad's just pushing the button. And again, Austin has his axe, and what's happening, the reason they're so like hurried, like it's like a chase scene, like the slowest of chase scenes, because they're hearing that bell. And the bells only come from one place, right? Because they place the bell on the toes of the corpses, right? So you hear every other step, and you hear how slowly it is advancing on them. But it is a dead body, so of course they're fucking terrified and trying to get out of there. So the idea that the elevator turns on for just a second is like a flicker of hope. And it gets to the point where it's so close, the bell ringing rather, because again, you don't never really see anything, that Tommy takes the axe out of Austin's hand because he's just so terrified he's like motionless. And yeah, Tommy just like axes whatever's out there. Then the lights actually fully turn on and everything like as if nothing happened as far as electricity wise. And then you see the girlfriend on the floor with an axe in her fucking like face, or no, it's like her neck, right?
No, I think it's straight up in her face. No,
it's just straight up in her face. Okay,
I'm pretty sure, but
basically she just took an axe, like viciously so. So yeah, were they hallucinating? Were they under some sort of spell? Was it a dark? And it's like, what's happening there, Josh?
I'm glad that you asked, Michelle, because this is my big reveal. Cool. Nothing in the movie actually happened. It's all an illusion. Every single thing that happened was an illusion. And we find that confirmation in some very interesting details at the end of the film. When the sheriffs walk in at the end of the movie, they find everything, right? They do find a body. Well, they find 3 bodies. They find the girlfriend, they find Austin, and they find Tommy. Tommy, eventually, we're gonna get into the end scene, right? But in the end scene, Tommy, in order to spare his son, tells Jane Doe, I will be your sacrifice. And you can leave Tommy alone and he'll get out of here. Jane Doe accepts that sacrifice, and Tommy feels every single thing that was done to her. He is now feeling it. And as he is drained of his energy and his lungs turn black and his heart has cuts in it and his eyes go fucking gray like hers are, her eyes come back, there's color, and her incisions and everything else is healed. Eventually, he asks Tommy to kill him. He asks Austin to kill him. Austin takes a scalpel and he kills him to put him out of his misery. Austin thinks that he's going to escape. That's not the case. He is eventually at the top of the stairs and is startled, even though the sheriff is telling him that the door's open. It is not. He falls back over the stairs and he breaks his neck. When the sheriffs finally get into the space, the underground morgue, nothing that had happened other than the actual deaths is evident. There's no blood on anyone's face like there was before. There's no damage to Tommy's body. Austin's, except for the scalpel wound, the Austin's body, his neck is broken, but none of the other stuff is there. There's no evidence of smoke. There's no evidence of all the blood that was anywhere. All the bodies are back in the coolers. The girlfriend does have the axe wound, but again, that was inflicted by a person, like one of the people that was there. And the cat is dead. Also, a wound that was dealt by a person inside. So the only evidence of anything that actually happened was what they did to themselves or each other. All of this makes for the conclusion that her power was not physical or supernatural. It was the ability to make them think what was going on was actually happening and then kill each other. They died because of their own hysteria. Does that sound familiar? Because in the Salem witch trials, that's exactly what the fuck happened. These women lost their lives because of hysteria that was created by their own communities, inside of their own communities, by their own people, and sometimes themselves. And so we find the same thing here. She was able to create hysteria enough to make all of these people kill each other, and Austin kill himself on accident, but still, no one else killed him. And then once the illusion is broken by the door opening, all of this is there is nothing happened. Nothing actually happened. It was all in their heads, and they killed each other. The only problem here, and it's not really a problem because one is not mutually exclusive to the other, is that at the end of the movie she wiggles her toe and the bell goes off. And so presumably she is either alive or something of that nature, but nothing that actually happened in the movie, or that happened in the movie, actually happened. So her power is not anything other than being able to manipulate their reality and their mind.
What do you think's worse? Like actual, like physical power, or like that mental type of power?
Well, I think that the mental power proved to be effective in a way that maybe physical power wouldn't have been. It's hard to think, or I mean, in actual application, I don't think it matters. I think for the purposes of the movie, it was better that it's all in their heads because that somehow makes it more believable.
Okay.
You know, that there's some kind of really sinister, powerful, evil power is somehow more viable for me than actual physical harm coming to these people because of her. I mean, still because of her, but in a very different way. So, that's my take on it.
Like, having talked about the entire film, I didn't really want to say much until everything was sort of mentioned, because I feel like all of these, like, every little aspect until the very end is important. As far as, again, my personal interpretation for the film. So I think the entire film is this take or this view on body autonomy, right? Like, specifically for women. Like, let's discuss that the women in the film are all fucking dead. Or they have like a 3-minute screen time and then they're fucking dead, right? The mother, she was already dead. Well, Jane Doe, kind of whatever. That's self-explanatory. But how I found... So these two men came to the conclusion that she was a quote-unquote witch after performing this autopsy examination and intruding upon her body. And this was the reason why all of this supernatural activity, quote-unquote, was occurring to them. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Or was she? Like, I'm on... Like, or was she as far as, like, a witch, right? Like, they come to that conclusion. But also, Tommy does say... He explains his belief that no one was a witch during the Salem trials, right? It was all like hysteria. That it was just a lot of, as he says, like she said, he said, they said.
And it was just dehumanizing those accused until they finally just admitted to it, just to get over it, right?
Yeah.
So the film takes a well-known moment in time when, like, let's just say a governing body decides to make these rules or laws and assumptions over other people's private and personal lives, mainly women, and if the laws were broken or they try to fight against it, then said governing people would punish you in some way. So women didn't have a voice, right? And
What's that
or
beeping
rather
noise?
they did, but it was never heard, right? So at the surface, this film is about a quote-unquote witch who is seeking revenge, right? Dig deeper, it's about body autonomy, right? How many times, how many signs did she give to make them to tell them to stop, like, intruding upon her body? It's about also listening to women and not silencing them, right? The mom put up a facade to cover up her depression because it was an inconvenience to the happy ray of sunshine view that the husband had on her, right? And also, maybe she wasn't getting enough attention from her husband because he was always at work. That's something that's also mentioned. Emma, the girlfriend, gave advice to Austin to just leave and tell his dad the truth that he doesn't want to be there. Once again, that was ignored. And then Jane Doe's fight of, being her for who she truly is and respecting her body. Like, she is so unheard to the point where she even has her tongue cut off, right?
Mm-hmm.
So all of this, again, it's all tied back, or it kind of begins with the horrendous trials in, like, the 17th century that persecuted and silenced women. Also, the father, Tommy, realizes that if that were the fact, if that were the case, that the body suggests that she wasn't just simply hanged or burned at the stake, right? That there was a ritual here, a ritual to torture this woman with a vicious intent, and that this actually ended up creating what they were trying to destroy. Now, hear me out. So, everything I just said, right?
I'm scared.
If she were from Salem, and she was accused of being a witch, but again, like they showed, her autopsy shows she didn't die from drowning, burning, or hanging, which that's how they would execute witches, right?
Okay.
What she did go through, and with the circumstances, like, okay, all of that, we already know all of that. Sorry, I'm repeating myself. So maybe she was accused of using witchcraft or associating with witches or having butter go bad in her household, right? Maybe it was an accusation that didn't warrant an execution, but rather it just exiled her and anyone she lived with from their town or community. And that family now has to live, like, on the outskirts of town, like, hardly any food, harsh conditions by themselves, right? With the idea that she could possibly be a witch, because that's why this happened. So, it's just, one day the family, they reach a breaking point, say fuck it, try to get rid of the reason why they were banished. And this leads to them becoming what they fucking hated, which was her, a witch, because they used a quote-unquote witchcraft style ritual to torture her. And like Tommy said, it creates what they were trying to destroy. Think of the movie The Witch. Change the narrative a little bit, like with the parental characters. I think the parents, especially mainly like William and their relationship with his relationship with Thomason, it definitely could have gone this route. So I'm just trying to make, like, how they keep saying, like, how the whole thing started with, like, a burned body, right? Like, get beneath the surface. Well, why is this happening? Well, why did this happen to her, right? And I think maybe something like that happened, right? But also, again, it's mainly this, like, I've always said this, that horror films / science fiction films, they have this way of making modern societal views, but like really amplified, right? And I think this is a good example of that we silence women, women don't have a voice. Also, to the right now, like, we don't have bodily autonomy. we're still fighting for shit like reproductive rights and bodily autonomy, but, you know, there's other people in charge that are making these decisions for us. I feel like all of that is tied to that. To the point where at the very end, there's a woman deputy who's investigating the scene. The sheriff goes up to her, and she tells him, it looks a lot like he, hinting to, like, they probably, like, murdered, like a murder-suicide, right? In which he responds, I don't want to hear that. I've known this family for years. It's like she's fucking doing her job. She's there investigating. She told him, like, he asks, she tells him, it looks a lot like this. Exactly what we see in front of us. And he just dismisses it. Then we have the fucking driver who's taking JD to another county because at this point the sheriff's like, I don't want to deal with her. She's not my problem. Just send her somewhere else. Someone else will deal with her. Right? The JD. Then we have the fucking driver who's driving the ambulance that's taking the Jane Doe to another county. He's on the phone with his girlfriend and says, aw, baby, listen, that was just one time. Hell yes, this promise. While he's quote-unquote promising, rewatch that, because he looks back. He's not looking back to, like, the first time I saw it, I thought he was, like, reaching back to, like, grab a drink, to grab, I don't know, a fucking snack, whatever. He's doing, like, an up and down look at Jane Doe, who is right fucking behind. He's literally checking out Jane Doe.
Right.
Go watch it, and if you disagree with me, please tell me, because this upset me so fucking hard, and I watched it and I rewatched it. To where at the same time he also says, hell yes, like, it's a promise, saying, like, that was the only one time. And again, you have the radio that kicks in, and playing her song. However, right before it plays the song, it's like, I don't like the radio talking about church radio, and as soon as he makes that promise to the girlfriend on the phone, you hear it say, the word of God is powerful, then and let the sun shine in song plays. So, this fucking film, I didn't get any of what I kind of just talked about as far as, like, listening to women, body autonomy. I think that was the whole, like, it started with Salem. It started like, let's turn her into a witch. They find peat under her nails. They find peat in her hair. You know, everything else that just leads to that. But then at the same time, kind of how you mentioned the hysteria, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And just taking all of that into account, but, like, what's the... Like, there's a modern view that's being taken here, and it's just, like, really zooming in on it and taking it to this, like, insane, deeper, hyper-realistic, showing it in this kind of hyper-realistic way. That's what I gotta say. I was very upset with everyone afterwards. At first I was like, oh shit, she's scary. She's just killing people, like how she killed the cat, right? That was very upsetting to me.
Mm-hmm.
Then I started realizing, like, okay, like, no one's listening to her, and I get it. Like, it's weird taking it into this kind of modern setting of, like, they're just trying to do a job. They're trying to get this autopsy report, but again, at the end, though, kind of what you said, all of this was just, like, not bullshit, but just in their head, and they ended up doing everything themselves. But thoughts on what I just said? It's a lot.
I think that because you're a woman, I'm not going to listen to anything you just said.
What?
Perfect. That's exactly what I wanted to hear.
No, I think that there is a lot of that, right? There. First of all, it's a movie about where, like, the main subject is a woman, but she's not, like, she doesn't ever talk or, like, emote. And then we get that with the girlfriend who is, like, even the very brief interaction that you get with her and Austin is like, look, I will eventually like do what's right for us, but right now I gotta do what's right for my dad. And then with the dad, his complications in his marriage and not being able to, the guilt of not being able to see that something was wrong with his wife. Almost the pressure of giving her that nickname, like she must have felt some, like you said, like some massive amount of pressure to be Ray, to be a ray of sunshine, as opposed to being like, hey, something's fucked up here. I mean, all of that. There's constantly a theme of women and how they are affected in a negative way by the men around them. That being said, I think there's certain things where it's like, okay, so what was the sheriff supposed to say? Like, his friend and his son were just involved in a horrific death. Yes, she's doing her job, but is he supposed to be like, nope, you're right, that's what it is? Like, no, I mean, there's shock, there's denial, there's wanting to be defensive that someone would even suggest that about your friend, someone that they have presumably known for a very long time in what is presumably a small town, and that's your neighbor, and it's someone that you could possibly have known your entire life, and they're lying there, you know, in what was clearly, whether it's a murder-suicide or not, it was horrific the way that they died. And again, you're doing your job, but there's complications in that. There's consequences for doing your job, and even with good intentions, which I think, like, the intentions for Tommy, for his wife, were good. Did that matter? No. The intentions for Austin, his girlfriend, were good. Did that matter? No. The only people that really had bad intentions were whoever did this to Jane. Because even then, Jane is not really in control of what happens. Like once the cut happens, once her body is open, that's it. That's the curse. That's what the fuck is happening.
Released. Yeah.
And that had nothing. It had nothing to do with what happened to her originally, and she had nothing to do with what happens, you know, once they start cutting. And so, again, a lot of themes of innocence not mattering, and the road to hell is paved with good intentions, and you really need the value in all of this. The lesson here is really about finding out what's really there. Don't turn away because something is unpleasant, or it's gross, or it's depressing, or it's sad. Look at it and really understand what you're looking at. What are you observing, and are you observing something less than what's there because you're used to it? We've been married for 30 years, and so this is just the way she gets sometimes. You know, we've done a lot of really gross autopsies, so some of this stuff that's happening is just part of the job. No, see what's actually there, see what's going on.
And I feel like he does do this in this one instance. Like, you know, he does go throughout the whole thing when, like, the blood first comes, like, gushing out, or, you know, he has, like, not an excuse, but, like, oh, I've seen this, or, like, oh, with, like, the wrists and the ankles being completely shattered, like, oh, yeah, I saw this, like, 15 years ago, these two girls, etc. And it wasn't until they decided, like, we need to go back in that room, and we need to finish the autopsy, because maybe we can find something that will help us stop her, right? And all they find is said connection to, like, the year 1693. They put together the, oh my gosh, what was the Jimson weed? The peat, right?
The Jimson weed, yeah. That was from the Pacific Northeast.
Yeah,
I mean, the Atlantic Northeast.
So like New England, let's just say that.
Right.
that
it's
accurate?
it's a paralyzing agent from where Salem is.
And also, I read not just paralyzing, but it also has hallucinogen effects. So it
I didn't read that, but
hallucinate.
yeah.
So again, I definitely like your thing about how like just seeing beneath the surface. Like, yes, very much so. I think that goes hand in hand with what I said about, it's, of course, I'm a fucking woman. I'm biased, right? And I'm biased in that I saw all the women in here not being listened to, like even the mother, right? Because, like, as mentioned, we both said, like, she had this like pressure of being this ray of sunshine, but it was too much, etc. But it's still something that I was able to connect to, like modern things, and kind of how you said this like hysteria that was created during the Salem trials. It's exactly what they just went through, and yeah, maybe it's a way of teaching them a lesson, making them realize. But like at the end, they fucking die, so like they're not gonna take that lesson with them to their grave. Like, it's just they're dead. I don't know. But as far as like my little anecdotes about how Jane Doe, what actually happened to her, I really did like trying to put that together, trying to follow Tommy's advice about like looking beneath the surface. I was like, well, what could have led her to this? And I honestly thought of like the film The Witch immediately. And I was like, wait a minute, like they were kind of banished, mind you, for different reasons. But then this whole like they start accusing Thomasin of being a witch. Again, that's like a whole other thing. But I kind of made these connections because again, it's that same time ish, right? Again, the witch was a few years before the trials occurred. So again, it's just women being persecuted, women being silenced, and it's not just listening to like just women, but mind you, they are silenced more. And to answer Mr. J Texas Music's question, nah, I don't think a John Doe would have been, because scarier. I think would have been definitely less. And I also like what you said, like where would he have gotten his powers, his whatever, and also he's a man. Like, how is he oppressed? Like, just stop. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I saw it very much through this filter, and that's why I messaged you all. Like, yeah, I think I just wrote like a 7-page manifesto about feminism. Like, just like rewatching and seeing certain scenes kind of play out all the way up till the end. And again, yeah, I totally agree. Like, the sheriff's just in fucking awe. He's in denial. He just lost like really good friends. However, it's also those little subtle, like you said, like there's a lot of foreshadowing or like little hints throughout the film, but they're not like, forced upon you. It's like, oh, hey, did you catch that? Or like little like details here and there. And I felt like those last two, the sheriff saying, I don't want to hear that, and the driver being disgusting, were being disgusting and not really listening to the girlfriend on the phone. Or two instances, additional instances of like just not listening and not paying attention.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, I like the evidence of those themes is there. I mean, you can't. I don't. Well, we took different approaches to it, which is what we wanted, and we wanted to see, we wanted to see things in a different angle, and we wanted to have a lot more to discuss. I think if anything is going to drive, that home, it's how disgusting the driver is, like very clearly on the nose, being a pig, and I kind of hated that, because again, everybody else in the movie had been victimized, and this guy was like the only one that was about to not be a victim. Like, he actually probably deserved what was coming to him for desecrating a body with his eyes and all that. But yeah, I mean, I think, for me, I was a lot, more caught up in the idea that none of it happened, and the visuals and the actual witchcraft, just like I was with Salem. I mean, that's where my
Well, to me,
interest
like
lied.
that's like the driving force, like the oh my god, like the narrative. My goodness, what's the term? The thing that drives the narrative. What, the reason this all started was like that, the witchcraft, the Salem, like all of that, right? Like I don't think the story would have worked without any of that being there. And I think with the driver, like it wasn't so much like him being a fucking creep and like checking out this, checking out JD, but it was like the thing that he's like on the phone with the girlfriend saying, oh my gosh, we said, nah, baby, like that was just the one time, I promise, as he's like trying to check out Jane Doe. Like that
Yeah,
to me
yeah.
is just like Jesus. Mind you, she is covered up though. Like minus her head and her toes, of course. But
And that's all you
um
need.
I did read
Super hot toes.
yeah, super hot toes. And those eyes. I did read two things. People's theories that one, the reason Austin dies is because the father was not asking him or gesturing for him to get the scalpel and put him out of his misery. What he was trying to tell him, but he couldn't because he was in so much pain, is to get the scalpel and cut off his tongue because that's the last thing that she needed. I thought, again, this is something I read that someone else said. I thought that she did take the tongue and that's why he couldn't really speak. But
I
then I
thought
went
he
back.
couldn't speak because he was in so much pain.
Yeah, so then I went back and that was actually the case, like the latter,
Yeah,
that he couldn't
yeah.
speak because of this amount of pain. The other, um, oh my goodness, theory is that when Tommy says, "Let me help you, take whatever, do whatever you want to me, just let him live," you see again, like you mentioned, like he starts basically feeling everything that was wrong with her. So at the end, when you see her toe move, she basically was able to heal herself a little bit, and maybe that's why her skin is so preserved, because maybe this has happened in previous times, right? Where someone realizes like, oh, she has this power, I'm fucked anyway, let me try to like bargain with her, right, to save whoever the fuck, like, again, just making scenarios up in my head, right? And maybe that's how she was able to preserve her skin, right? Because her skin is flawless. There's nothing wrong, but, wrists are shattered, her ankles are shattered, like shit that should have terrible bruising. So the theory was that when she took all the good, not broken parts, like basically the sacrifice that Tommy gave, that basically healed her and gave her a little bit more power. So what the toe at the end kind of lets us as an audience know is that she might be able to walk now. Because she did take certain things, like, again, the ankles, right? Maybe she couldn't walk because of the ankles. She couldn't this. And again, did we mention the whole, they did end up opening her skull, getting some brain matter, and it turns out her brain is still, like, alive. And
Oh yeah, that part was creepy.
very much there, right?
Yeah.
There was another theory that was fucking insane. I don't even want to read it. Where'd it go? But yeah, I don't know. What do you think of those two?
I think that for me, the healing part was obvious. Like, that's her thing. That's what she does.
To the
That's
point
how.
where, like, again, if that's a thing where she can heal herself, right? Which we saw it happening. Why couldn't she have then gotten up and walked away? Why was it the toe wiggling at the end an indicator of her being able to walk? Does that make sense? Like, I don't understand why they were trying to make this just like this theory of she's going to walk next. You know?
Well,
Is
I
that really-
imagine she needs like more souls, like more life force to like recover from such horrendous shit. Not to mention she has to keep healing herself from the autopsies. So, but I mean, I couldn't answer that question.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I just like your thoughts in general.
Well, yeah, I mean, I thought that the healing thing, like, that was her, that's what she did, like, that was the whole point of what she did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Real quick, I gotta say
Yes.
something on this last game. I could have a 4K, but this Dwight that I let escape, anyone that was watching, he had one, an Otofu shirt, who is probably like the best DVD streamer. Two, he was playing as Dwight, which is one of my characters that I use. And three, his name is Burt McQuacken. Like Burt McCracken from the U's, but Burt McQuacken.
Yeah. Tofu has his own shirt in the fucking game?
Yeah. I'll show you it.
Shit.
But yeah, I was like, you're getting out, because you're just perfect. Perfect name, perfect character, perfect cosmetic.
Well, that's very merciful of you. It's kind of the opposite of what we're talking about, but
I know, right? Especially as Pyramid Head. But yeah, that was a pretty fun game. These games tonight have been pretty good.
Nice.
Jesus also asks, if you can't say both, would you rather have a prequel to this movie or a sequel to this movie?
Prequel.
Yeah, I think prequel would be better because you can see all the fucked up shit that happened to her more so.
I mean, I straight up tried to write her fucking prequel. Like, what happened? Who did this to you? You were in a family, you had bad butter, and you got banished, and your family tried to take it out on you. The prequel.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I think they'd both be pretty cool, but since I can't say both, and just for, like, argument's sake, like, I think a sequel, like, we get all the stuff that we just theorized on and, like, came up with, like, our own idea of what happened, like, a lot of those questions would be answered, which I think would be nice. So I mean, I think a sequel, we see, it just takes, like, the second, like, the movie would start, like, right after this dude, like, stares at her, and then she just fucking rips him apart, and then, Sarah says she saw Kill Bill, and you gotta will your limbs out of atrophy. That's pretty good. Fucking wiggle your big toe.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
And the driver that was taking the body is the pussy wagon guy.
That's a pussy wagon. It all makes sense. There you go.
This is the Tofu shirt.
That's fucking crazy, man. I didn't know he was, like, big enough to have his own shirt in the game.
Well, a few streamers have it. Like, it was just a thing they did, like a while back. But yeah, fucking, he has his own shirt. Pug has his own shirt. Vince Vega has his own shirt, and a few others. All
That's
streamers
cool.
that I watch.
That's cool.
Hopefully, I'll get a shirt one day.
Well, so obviously, I think this is gonna be a hard recommendation. Not like a recommendation hard to make, but like a very hard yes all the way around. Ernie, so much so that he couldn't watch it.
Yeah.
Because it was that scary, which I 100% agree with. Especially alone. Like, I think watching with other people, but watching it alone is very uncomfortable.
And then my dogs bark at every fucking thing, so...
fucking scare the shit out of you.
Yeah, fuck that. I'm going crazy!
Obviously, like, no matter what our takes were, they were enthusiastic. That, you know, we split it up in kind of like the visual part of it and the writing part of it. And we were both we both came up with a lot of stuff that was good. Like, not that we came up with it, but like we were very excited and enthused to talk about these things, to talk about these theories, because both the writing and the visuals of the movie were both really, really just well done, and terrifying and deep and thematic and cinematic and all those other good things. So I think the Death by Daylight endorsement is very clear on this one, and so go check it out if you haven't. I'm pretty sure everyone else here has, but if you haven't checked it out, I recommend it. And if nothing else, like if you don't like all the things we just said to you are like not reasons why you watch movies, watch the movie because it's fucking scary and it's cool, and because it is both of those things. And Sarah says his name was Buck. Oh, the pussy wagging guy. That's fucking crazy. That, like, I'm a big Tarantino guy, and I didn't like remember that, and I've seen that movie quite a few times. So that's
his name was Robert
pretty
Paulson.
impressive. His name was Robert Paulson. Fucking, that's a fucking great movie and a great book.
Yeah. I have both.
Yeah, so that's we don't exactly know. We don't know exactly what we're doing next week.
What do you guys want to
we've talked about. Yeah, if you have some suggestions, Luis, if you're listening, I promise we are getting to Silent Hill. It just takes a little bit because it's a game. It's not, you know what I mean? Like it's
unless we just cover the movies. I mean,
and we could cover the movies, and I thought about that, but I think we're doing it a disservice if we don't talk about the games. The same thing with like Resident Evil, Keith, if you're still here, like Resident Evil. I think that if we're going to talk about the movies, they need to be in the context of the games, and so it's just taking a little while because there's a lot that goes into researching a game when it's not like super available to play. Nor do I want to fucking torture myself playing a bunch of Silent Hill like I did when I was a very young man, and kind of doing it for the sake of people not calling me a coward. So we are getting there. We're going to do a Pyramid Head / Silent Hill episode, but I doubt it'll be next week. But we will get there. And if you guys have anything else that you want us to get to either next week or in the very near future, please drop those suggestions down in the comments, in the chat. We promise, if you put something there, I promise you that we will do it over the course of the next couple months or so. We do have a couple of ideas, and we're trying to change the show around a little bit to make it, I don't know if it's an efficiency issue.
I think more streamlined is the better word.
Yeah, I think that's a good word, and I think that as opposed to like Michelle having to like, you know, tell me that she has something to say, to rather just give her, you know, take and receive the floor back and forth. So that we both and have different focuses on the topics that we're talking about, so that we have a variety of platforms and an equal opportunity to speak and to drive the conversation. It helps me out a lot because I feel like sometimes I don't want to, like I just want to listen about. You know, I want to listen and gather my thoughts and then come back with something. And so that's what we're trying to do. So if it sounded a little bit different today, we hope that it was a positive thing, that it sounded different in a good way. If it didn't, we would love your feedback. And we promise you, I promise you that if it was worse than it usually is, that was not on purpose. We are just trying new things so that we can try to make this a better program and a better experience. And as much as we appreciate the people that keep coming back, and trust me, we do. we love you guys. We wouldn't be doing this without you guys because, it just, we appreciate your participation. We know you're out there listening, and so it gives us motivation to do that. But we do want to continue to grow and establish an audience, because we want to be able to grow what we're doing. We want to be able to do, to continue with the stream, but then also do something that's closer to a podcast that we would pre-record and be able to cut and edit, and things like that. We want to have different streams. We want to do charity streams, and we want to do, we want to do streams that have nothing to do with Dead by Daylight, and Ernie's going to be able to go back to the kind of, like, if you watch Twitch and you watch mainstream streamers and what they do, we were able to do some of that stuff for a little while, and then things got fucked up. But we are catching up, and we do want to get back to doing stuff that makes us look more appealing and more professional and all that good stuff. So big things coming on our end. We are working on it, and that's not the end of my housekeeping. Please like and subscribe and share and tell your friends that we are here, and we appreciate listening. Beneath the City El Paso said the Resident Evil movies should never be talked about. I actually kind of I don't entirely agree with that, but I do think that the games are way more important to the canon. They're more important to the culture than the movies are. But especially the first Resident Evil movie, I liked that movie. Not a ton. I wasn't like, it's not like I'm sitting there going like, yeah, Resident Evil, but I liked it enough to fuck with it, like to say that
I own them all. Actually, I like them.
The fucking Slipknot in that movie.
Oh yeah. Michelle Rodriguez.
Michelle Rodriguez.
Same. She is amazing.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I wish I could. I mean, we won't comment quite on that about that yet, but we will discuss the games if we're going to discuss the movie. That's just hands down. Obviously, same thing with Silent Hill, and other. I mean, I can't really think of that many other examples of a horror game that was turned into a movie eventually, but I'm sure there's 1,000 that I'm just not thinking of. But that'll always be our approach because we believe in video games for the culture, and the culture of horror video games and what that's done for mainstream horror and what that's done for people needing, the crossover, needing the medium in order to get into horror movies. Maybe your first exposure into horror media was Resident Evil, and then that got you into zombie stuff, and then it's gone from there. I mean, all of that stuff is important to talk about for us. We're obviously, we stream a video game. We're a video game platform. We hope to eventually be on Twitch, which is a video game-centric platform, and so we're always going to give the video games their just due. And that's housekeeping. If you're still listening, thank you, because housekeeping can be tedious, but we've got to do it. We really do want to, continue to expand and to do better and to do bigger things. So, I think that's it for me. Do you guys have something that you want to say?
No, just thanks for everyone that showed up today. It was fun. Thanks. We couldn't do this without y'all.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you for listening. Thank you for still having me on. And I did want to ask anyone who is still listening, even you two, Josh and Ernie, if, as far as the cocktails, I don't know if you have hey, give me more whiskey cocktails, or I want this. I don't know, just throw it on the Instagram or message or something, and maybe next week I can make something for you, or even if it's I have this, and this at home, make something that I can actually make while I listen. But yeah.
I know for sure you make damn good stuff with mezcal, so.
Yes. Clearly I'm biased, so any cocktail that I've made thus far, I've either tried to make it like, well, one, I try to make all of them fit the theme or the topic. But secondly, I tend to use the things that I drink because, of course, I have them at home. But I do have a full bar, so just let me know. Let me know what you have. We'll make it work.
I want a cocktail with bullet. I'm just kidding. She's
So I
like,
have
Gah!
bourbon that's better and not as expensive. Uh, you let me know. I will make something for you. That's totally
Bet.
fine. But yeah, thanks, guys.
All right, we will see you. Make sure you follow us on at Death by Daylight Instagram and Twitter, Death by Daylight on Facebook. And all that, it's easier. But let us know, and that's it for us. We'll see you next week.
Bye.